Stick with me, I'll make you famous. I'll take you places to see different faces. I'm Matthew Msingati, the designer and developer. This is a series where I'm reverse engineering YouTube. Now we are in the business logic. This talks to the MVC pattern. The MVC pattern. The C being the controller, the V being the view, and the M being the model. So if we are talking about the controller, we can just take this part of the MVC module, and also it acts as a business logic in the layered architecture. So in terms of YouTube, what is actually happening in the business layer? In a section of the whole entire application where the logic is being done, where certain decisions are being done. Number one, this layer has to stick to the rules of engagement, just like layer number one. It will mean that this layer has been designed in such a way that it communicates very well with the user interface, which is the views, and also if this is a controller, and also the model. So if this is a model, a part that connects to the database, this controller or the business logic must conform to the rules of engagement, because it's interested in receiving information from the database about a certain list of videos, about things that it can suggest to the view. Based on the interest of the viewer, it's supposed to suggest some things. How is it going to do that? It must connect to the database, so meaning that it must stick to the certain rules of engagement, so that the database layer, the model, can push information to it. It can give it a list of videos, parts, and images as thumbnails, so that it can take all those and fit those into the view. So meaning that the first thing that we must notice about the business logic of the YouTube application is that it must stick to the rules of engagement, because it's more like an intermediary. It's standing between two layers, the database layer and the view. So by sticking to the rules of engagement, it means that also it has to be selfish. That's why if it's selfish, then it will stick to the single responsibility principle of the solid principle. So it will stick to this. That means it's going to be a solid platform. It's going to be a solid class or a solid layer. So this means that it must stick to the rules of engagement. There is a certain way in which it connects or it communicates with the layers, and there is a certain way in which it communicates to the database. How is it going to send information, and how is it going to receive it? How is it going to send information, and how is it going to receive it? And point number two, when we talk of solid principle, this O stands for open, close. Sorry for my bad writing. It stands for open, close. This looks like a contradiction. How can something be open and close at the same time? When we talk of the solid principle, this is the layer that has to nail the open-close principle. The open-close principle states that a class, a function, or whatever needs to be closed for modification, but only open for extension. So if YouTube wants to add a new feature, they can just plug in it here. Let's say now they want to involve chats, maybe they want to imitate WhatsApp. So meaning that through this open gap, they are able to extend the YouTube platform. But as you can see, this is closed for modification. If you want to change the entire code, the entire controller, you can't go into the module in this class and just change it, because this class has been designed in such a way that it has got a piece of a gap where it can add an extension, more or less like WordPress and the plugins. So meaning that this layer, the business logic, is the one that relies heavily on the open-close principle. It must be closed for modification, but open for extension. That's why it's easier for YouTube to keep on changing. Today you hear that the algorithm is saying this, tomorrow they have removed that, and then tomorrow the interface looks like this, and then the other day the interface looks like that. So this is the layer that heavily relies on O of the solid principle. So the open closed. And then going to the next thing, this layer is the one that heavily relies on being modular. And this is a setup for my last point, which is point number 4. When we are talking of something that is modular, we are talking of something that has been broken down into modules, into chunk. Maybe when you are at school or university, you will hear that there are course modules, maybe introduction to object-oriented programming, advanced concept, and also class diagram and UML. Those are, let's say, the modules. So meaning that this class is the one that is modular, meaning that as a business logic, it consists of module. It relies heavily on modules, meaning that it's sticking to a good programming practice of being loosely coupled. It's not spaghetti. It's not one thing that consists of a lot of things, whereby the YouTube engineers and programmers, when they want to know how can we add a new subscriber feature, or how are we going to upgrade, because now maybe it's 2052 and things are changing, and then you find out that the new programmer needs to take like 2 months or 2 years trying to find out how this code was written. But if it's in modules, we know that this module deals with subscribing. This module is an algorithm. This module is about suggestion, how the videos are being suggested to certain people. This module is about registering new users and whatever. So this layer, the business layer, heavily relies on, it must be modular. It cannot be tightly coupled, because if it's tightly coupled, then YouTube will never scale or move at a fast pace that it is moving right now. And my last point is that I am convinced that YouTube is object oriented. It's object oriented. It's object oriented programming, because with OOP, these things that we are talking about, the solid principle and also the design pattern, they are possible. But without object oriented programming, they are not possible. And design pattern and the solid principles and the solid principle, they are the foundation of all these big platforms that we are using. All these big platforms that we are using, your Google, your Twitter, your whatever, your Instagram and your Twitter, in the base of them, they are object oriented, so that all these things, they can act like independent objects that communicate with each other. Why is that going to be done? Imagine, let's say YouTube has got, like, this is just a wild guess, I have never worked for YouTube and I've never been there, but let's just say that they have got like 125 programmers. How do these people know what piece of code to work on? If they are only told that you, team of 5, you are going to be responsible for the subscriber object, here is the UML diagram, or here is the class diagram for the YouTube channel. I will just pause the video. I'm hearing a disturbance. Okay, I'm back again. Let's continue. Now, how are these people are going to share the information? Then they can say a team of 5, this team can work on the subscriber object. Here is the UML diagram for it that has been drawn by the designing team or the architectures of the YouTube platform or the YouTube application. And then they will look at the class, and they will look at the objects that have been designed. Okay, this subscriber object, it interacts with the registration object, it interacts with the login object. So instead of us dealing with all those things, we can only deal with this object and do it very well. Once we are done with that, we just send the code to whatever who was responsible for supervisor or a tech lead. I don't know the terms of the software development industry. If you know those terms, you can help me and shoot a comment below. where are the programmers reporting to? Maybe to a tech lead, I don't know. So they will just take the code, maybe commit it on GitHub, whatever they are doing. But the essence of this is that they can work on a certain piece of code. So we can have YouTube now having all these classes, let's say thousands and thousands of classes that work together, including subscribers, including features that are going to be added, including suggestion, including YouTube analytics, including best performing videos, as you can see, as objects. And then there is the mastermind team that is responsible for how these objects are interacting with each other. I'm Matthew Msingati, the designer and developer. Stick with me, I'll make you famous. If you feel like this video has added value into your overall understanding of the YouTube platform and object-oriented programming, please do me a favor. Click that subscribe button. Thank you so much. See you on the next one.